New York City oral surgeon harassed chauffeur, obsessively talked about his own small penis. Oh my, where are my glasses? This is what having soft men and women in charge has done. This is what it's done. But I want to make sure everybody knows that we had in the West, we had hard, masculine men in charge. And why didn't we stay in power? Why weren't these nations? Why weren't we born to countries where they actually represent us? What happened? What happened? I'll tell you what happened. So when other content creators out there are saying, organization leaders saying, we got to go back to the, like, everybody likes that tough men meme, like hard times and all this. You go around, there's a circle. There's no fucking circle. There's no coming back. I hate this where they make it act like, oh, it's a circle. Well, it'll just circle back around and we're just in this bad phase. There's no coming back. I don't think you all understand why, and there is no rolling back the record player. And so everybody presenting to you this argument that it's circular. We're just in this circular thing, and we're in a phase here. It's the lonely loser phase is where we are. That's where we live now. But it's okay. Just continue to do squat because it just circles. It circles. Get out a sharp knife and just take it off. Take it off. It's not circling anything without heroes stepping up in service to white well-being. And you know what else? There is no going back. Because if you go back to times where we lost it all. Do you hear me? How many times? How much fucking brighter does this community have to be than the rest of the fucking white sympathetic sphere? Everything that you could go back to, we lost, idiots. Every fucking thing. We've got to go forward to something that's never been. There ain't no back to fixing shit. It's all lost in the past. We got to go back. We got to go back to when they said that whole group of people were bad and they had to be kicked out. And then they were let back in. And then they were kicked out. And then they were let back in. And then we got to go back when we looked at each other across the imaginary lines and we said the sons of our mothers were inferior to us because they had a different flag and spoke a different language, or maybe the same language and a little bit of a different accent, so we have to invade. There ain't no going back to something that prevents where we are today. I mean, you know what the problem is? If I were some old man or fat or weak and a woman could beat me up, you all would be like, wow, he is a philosophical wizard. He is, listen to the wisdom that he shares there. And they would all go, oh. Everybody, when they would hear me share a piece of wisdom, they would go, oh. That would be the sound you'd have to make. Oh. Everybody would do it if I looked like that. If I were one of these other losers, that's what everybody would do. Hear this piece of wisdom. Everything from the past led to today. Everything from the past led to today. There is no going back that prevents today. Do you understand? We've got to go forward with changes so that this never happens again. Now, I want everybody, and of course, Team White Wellbeing, I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about the heroes. I'm not talking about the folks that are here and are heroes, or the folks who are watching replay are heroes. Everybody else needs to get on their knees and do a collective, I know. I'm totally handsome in the way that a man should be handsome, not pretty-faced. I'm handsome in the way that a man should be handsome. I'm muscular. I whoop ass. I can kick the shit out of most people, no problem. I was a star athlete. And yet, I'm also brilliant and magnificently wise. You're just going to have to get used to the actual paradigm for a hero leader in the West. You're not going to find it on Harry King Potter. You got it? It doesn't come from there. Stop looking for role models that look like movies you've watched, look like characters in movies you've watched. God, we're dealing with this brain dead shit population. You can't, everybody talking about this entire time across Western civilization. We have all these in the white sympathetic sphere. Want to talk about, we got to go back. We got to go back to maybe and then you have and also illustrating. You want some more wisdom? I can't even, I'm always like in the phase of like sharing the tools of white well-being so we could go. And I don't often have an opportunity to break it down. But I'm going to break another piece of wisdom down for you as we're running out of time for this. I should already spend too much time. I'll break another thing down for you. Listen to these content creators and these other content creators you go listen to. They talk about the story of the world within, we could call it the book of their own existence. That should tell you that you're not talking or you're not listening to a person beyond time like me. You're listening to somebody who is as stuck as you in modernity, as stuck as you in the current shit Western civilization that we live in. The whole world, the story of existence is enveloped in the span of their life, their birth to their present. That's it. That's how they talk about all of it. They are not beyond time. There is nobody out there beyond time but me. And yeah, you heard that right. Make sure you share that far and wide. Everybody else, we have warrior, philosopher, heroes here in service to white well-being, knights of the white table. And they get it. And they're on board and they're changing the world. And then we have all these others. They want to talk about going back in time, and they tell the story of all of history within the capsule of their birth to their. So they talk about politics. Just note, here's an easy way to understand it if you're not quite getting it. Listen to somebody, and you can do this very easily with content creators because they have, if you've been listening to them for a long time, or they have their videos or their audio is up, spread out there for you to go listen to different periods in history. And you listen to when they first started talking about politics. And you listen to over time how their perception of whether or not all is possible or all is lost changes as they age, as they go. Now, I'm not just talking about like from childhood to adulthood. I'm saying as the years go by, their impression is what I'm talking about, the capsule of their own life. So when they get started, they came to you with the argument. And the same thing happens with preachers and priests as well. And you all know it who spend any time like me in church. And I went to them all. I went all the, did you go to all of them? I went out to all the different denominations. I went to the Mormons as well and the Catholics as well. I went to everybody. And you hear the same thing in the course of those years of their lives, the capsule of their lives. Maybe First Last will come up with a better way to articulate it so that it'll be more easily understood. But when they got started, it was all things possible. We can do all of these different things in politics. We can do all of these different things with God. And then as their years count by, it's just like you see in dictators. And as their personal time ends, they get more and more desperate, and the country they control gets desperate. The same thing happens with CEOs. The same thing happens at church. The same thing happens with commentators. The same thing. And so after the beginning, when all things were possible, when they got started, all things are possible, and we just have to do this, that, and the other thing. As they age, it gets more and more bleak. It gets more and more, this will be the last chance, or that will be the last chance. And if that doesn't happen, then this. And if this is it. It's all, and it just gets increasingly dark, increasingly tenebrous. And then, if they're any good at taking your money away, they know how to peddle in place. They know how to run in place for you. So as soon as everything crumbles, then they'll read something that sounds hopeful, but you can hear in the tenor of their tone, you can see in the context that they deliver, based on where they are in the story of their existence and the interest in that particular topic, their own lives and that interpretation of all time from that position. There's no hope. There is no hope. How many times are people born? How many times are people born that their existence, as is everyone's, is capped, is controlled. It has a time is its master. It has a beginning and an end. And yet its mind and soul can see beyond. How many times does that happen? Well, I tell you what, not often. In fact, very rarely. And you see the masses, they're just out there. They don't know how to see it. They're just out there getting it from others. So that we have these men, to go back to the point, if you were able to follow, we have these men who were hard men. They were tough men. They were John Wayne type men. And yet they gave it all up. Yet they lost. And then we get these soft men and ladies in charge. And now, because nobody can be made to feel bad for their behaviors. Nobody can make, Jason, you don't want them to feel bad for just what they're doing. You don't want them to feel bad just because they're different. Yes, I do. Yes, I want them to feel bad. That's exactly what I want. Because we have norms in Western civilization that are being white erased because we haven't said, this is the fucking norm. This is what we strive to do. This is optimal in the West. And if you can't meet it, if you can't reach that norm, you fall too far below it, we're going to ridicule you into silence. So you won't be telling anybody about it. And so where do we get? We get to a point where the oral surgeon, how would you like to be one of his customers? The oral surgeon Gabriel Hirschman up there in New York City. And of course, that's where you're going to find Gabriel Hirschman in the boil of New York City, because it's been totally white erased. Don't bother telling me you're a white person and you go there and there's a great vibe or whatever. You're lying. You're lying. I mean, what you're doing is you're like reading the tea leaves of where, the Western civilization used to be here. There's so few pieces left here and there, and it's getting colored over and muddied. And you're like, well, those kind of left bits are good. Okay, I'll agree with you there. The tiny little bits that are left that are Western, they're still good. But the rest of the city has Hirschman there, and the oral surgeon. You know what oral is? The oral surgeon. And every day, virtually, hyperbole warranted, he was obsessively, says the lawsuit by his chauffeur, talking about how small his penis is. That's where we've gotten in the West. You need a Western civilization where your doctors think to themselves, if I reveal my sexual sickness to anybody else on planet Earth, somebody might find out that I don't want to know. And before I know it, they'll be at my office. They'll be at my home. They'll be telling all their friends and family. It'll be in the newspapers. It'll be in the community ethno paper. It'll be in the big papers. And they'll all say, what a sick POS, and I'll never be able to work again. No, but that won't happen. That won't happen in the West. No, this guy will probably get more clients, or at least the current business isn't going to be harmed by it. You know, you get to the lawsuits, like you get this. Where did I just read this? The woman who, where was she? Kansas? Where was she? Where was she? Was she somewhere in Kentucky? Was she somewhere in Tennessee? And she denied two guys a marriage license. So go to someplace else and get it. She denied. And now they sued her and just won for millions and millions. This like nobody worked as a civil servant. So that giant lawsuit, that giant victory, what is that? That is a sign of the white erasure of our morals and standards. White people would say, if at a bare minimum, hey, leave this person alone. She doesn't want to do business with you. Go someplace else. At a bare minimum. But instead, you can sue and you just rake in the nothing that you're going to get from the civil servant. I mean, it's everywhere. So what happens? You have people show up and they want to talk about their sexual proclivities, and instead of society saying, "Excuse me, we don't want to hear about your sexual proclivities. We don't want to hear about any of your sexual, because this is the public square. If you want to get together, you want to do something outside of the public, but public square has to have optimal standards that we all aspire. We all recognize, okay, I've fallen short here, I'm falling short there, and I fall short of optimal as well. We have optimal in all these different areas, but public square, we have to accept. Everything has this standard. All of it, period. Somebody throw litter on the ground, beat the shit out of them. Standards. That's the kind of standards we have. So far short of talking about what you like to do sexually in public. But instead, we had soft men and women in charge. And they said, but their feelings are just, I don't give a shit about their feelings. I don't give a shit about your feelings. I'm ready to put an end to the bleeding in Western civilization. And it's going to take a lot more people like me who have to come to, and apparently this is somehow difficult, who have to come to the challenges with love, hope, and redemption, and be hard where you got to be hard. Because all of these other people that talk tough, they don't do shit. And we'll talk about them today. All these tough talkers, they just go to jail. They just use tough talk to sit on their asses. They just use tough talk as an excuse to do nothing. What you're doing isn't worth it. The day is going to come. The day ain't going to come nowhere. The day ain't going to come nowhere for you, pussy. You're just a pussy. Everybody tough talking, bring it. You want to talk tough? Then bring it. Because you never do anything. I've met hundreds tough talkers who haven't done a thing. We got women. We got children here advocating for white well-being. You're not doing anything that's challenging or hard in the world. Saying you're going to fight when the day, you're going to fight nothing. Nothing but cowards. All right. I'm fired up today because of the news.